I'm Paul,
I'm Steve.
and this is a Shelfie. Welcome to Sumerian September, everyone, the reading event created by Michael K. Vaughan, wherein we read Robert E. Howard all month. This year, it's anything goes, which is pretty much his philosophy for anything he participates in. So we might as well keep it in the spirit of such. Today, I'm going to do a bit of a different kind of Shelfie. Instead of reviewing a book, I want to talk about a collection of books that came along in like 1995 and were the answer to a lot of people's prayers when it came to Robert E. Howard. Because prior to 1995, a lot of us, which is about when I got into him around 92, 93, we had to find Robert E. Howard books in used bookstores. And at one time, one of our Friday night events was to drive around to the half a dozen used bookstores in the area,
just looking for Robert E. Howard.
But yes, before eBay and Amazon destroyed used bookstores, we would drive around and me particularly, I was looking for Howard stuff, and like, a lot of just general sword and sorcery.
It's like that off-Broadway musical, Looking for Howard. Anyway, when I try to slide in these little jokes, I always throw you off. I always hope that you'll just keep going, like and ignore me. But
no, man. But sometimes you drop one, and I'm just like, my brain takes that idea, and I have just written the entire play based on like waiting for Godot, you know?
Exactly. Oh, waiting for, not looking for. That's it. Waiting for Howard. Waiting for Howard. Yeah.
Not your cousin Howard.
I ain't no dummy. Waiting for Howard. It's a double entendre.
Oh, Lord. Anyway, at that time, Tor Books had the rights for Conan, and they were producing like Conan pastiche novels, which I wanted to read Robert E. Howard stuff. I didn't want to read stuff that other people wrote using Robert E. Howard's characters, or taking his stories and like doctoring them up like the way this series did. This series is both infamous and famous.
Or like, I'm a little bit worried about this Arthur C. Clarke Rama 2.
Yeah. Well, okay, so anyway, Tor owned the rights to Conan, and they weren't producing any Howard Conan, they were producing pastiche Conan novels. So if you wanted anything Howard, you had to hit the used bookstores. But in 1987, I call it Baen Books. I've heard it pronounced Baen, but Baen Books put out Cthulhu Mythos and Kindred Horrors. It's a collection of Robert E. Howard stories that delved into like his horror stuff. Lovecraft let Howard use his mythos because Lovecraft's genius was, if I spread it out, that's more people coming back and looking for me.
Ideas that spread win.
Yeah, yes. Well, so Baen put this out in 87, and apparently it did so well that in 1995, it took them a minute. They produced this series of 7 books, okay? And these 7 books are Robert E. Howard stories that are not Conan. Like, this is his Cormac McArt book. This is his King Kull stuff, which is Kull was the king of Atlantis, which predates Conan. Your favorite and mine, the Solomon Kane books, which what confused me a while back was some of these stories in here were finished because he wrote fragments, never got back to them. Well, they finished them out to pad out this book, and they're good stories. They're just not all his writings. That way, when I was reading The Right Hand of Doom a while back, I thought it was just a fragmented story, but it wasn't. Bran McMorn, his King of the Picts, which, if you know anything about Roman history, you know how much of a thorn in the side the Picts were. Eons of the Night, which is just kind of like a collection of random stories, and not a Lionel Richie song. This one has, where is it? The Twilight of the Grey Gods, which is a historical fantasy representation of, like, I believe it's the when the Irish fought off the Vikings, and he put a fantasy spin on it, and it's amazing. Like, if you want to read something, a fantasy, Steve, if you want to read a short fantasy that isn't Conan, Twilight of the Grey Gods, dude, it's still
my favorite Twilight story.
Yes, yeah. One of my favorite things to do in the 90s was put on Monster Magnet and read Twilight of the Grey Gods. It's it's almost like you just escape into a whole different world. And then he had these last two, which were his horror stories that were more. They were more. Some of them were contemporary. Some of them were fantasy. But for the most part, they were his contemporary era. And that was basically it. We had these 7 books, and one of the things about them is, let's see if I can get a good example of it. For some reason, they used the cheapest paper possible because these books almost turn yellow almost instantly. Yeah, I mean, just sitting on the shelves, they'd turn yellow. But these came out between, like, once a month or whatever, from like 1995 to 1996. And that was it for new Howard material until Del Rey put these out in the early 2000s. And these are far superior to these, I feel, but these also have really great Ken Kelly covers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Ken Kelly was the guy who he painted a couple of Kiss album covers, and I actually got to watch one of them, probably the most famous one. I actually got to watch Kelly sell it at a convention one year, so that was kind of cool to actually see the. I'll put it on the screen, the painting that got sold. But these are better because they're truer to the original text, but these are a very special footnote because up until this point there was nothing new. Everything was those Ace. I think it was Ace put out the novels that they basically butchered. But weirdly, his two horror volumes don't have Pigeons from Hell, which the Cthulhu mythos and other kindred horrors does have. So, but I figured, the way I figure it, they're both put out by Baen, so why compete with yourself?
I compete with myself all the time because no one else can do it. So that's a good little group of books you got there.
I love them. I can't, for as cheaply as they're made, I cannot tell you how many times I've read these and they held up. Like that is boss right there. That is a Molly Hatchet album cover. I swear, it's not, but that's what it is. You know, these are great. And this really awesome, the Hull, who was basically Conan, proto Conan.
Dude's ripped.
His stories didn't quite sell, so Howard created Conan and kind of took a couple of his stories and rewrote them, and he was famous for that.
Bro,
but
do you even work out, bro?
You never waste anything you write.
That's true.
So if you have any of these, let us know down below. Let us know what you thought of them. And while you're down there, please do the YouTube things. Like, you already commented if you're telling us about them. Subscribe, hit that bell notification so you don't miss a single Shelfie.
Also, do you have a series similar to this that you like? Like there was an author that was out of print for too long. In other words, do you have your own Waiting for Howard story?
All right. On that note, I'm Paul.
I'm Steve.
And the next time you're looking for something to read,
check your shelf. E.